Good evening, folks. Welcome to part 2 of my ASL Starter Kit number 1 playthrough. We're doing War of the Rats, which is scenario number 2, 1942 Stalingrad action. Really challenging scenario, especially for the Germans, but also for the Russians, as we'll see in the upcoming turns that go by. But here we go, folks. We're going to jump into this. This is part 2, and if you haven't seen part 1 yet, I'll link it in the end of the video so you guys can know what's going on. And also, if you haven't tried ASL, I do highly recommend it. I mean, if you really like detailed tactical World War II rules, this is a game to try out, man. It's really a blast. Really good stuff. But anyway, folks, let's jump into the video and see how far we get along. Okay, folks, here we are. Top of the Russians. Well, not the top. I just finished the movement for the Russian turn. Start off with rallies. Nobody was able to rally, including the Germans. So this unit here is still broken. It's half squad in strength. Took a lot of damage in the previous turn. So there was nothing going on there. This guy up here for the Russians, he still has both of these units broken, one of which still has a DM marker because he's adjacent to the enemy. Right here. So he's probably going to end up routing when the rout phase comes around. So there was no rallies there. There was no rallies for the Germans. This guy had a DM marker on him. He is elite as well, but he's still broken. He failed. No real benefit from the leader, and the stone building helped, but nah, that's not going to happen. And this German unit back here couldn't even attempt to rally. As you can see, he's broken. He's a line unit, I believe, and he couldn't attempt it. So that was that. So there's no rallies. Preparation fires, you can see the Russians did a little firing here, here, and here. I think they were aiming at this guy, which is the only threat to them at this point. Possibly here as well, but none of that came to fruition. Over here we got a little prep fire also by this, what is it, first line unit. I believe he fired on this stack of Germans. No effect, of course. And that was it for the preparation fire phase. Movement phase, the Russians did a little shifting. So they're not sitting around. They don't really have to do anything because ideally the Romans have to take 3 buildings to win. Now, if they do manage to take 2 buildings, I'm going to give them a minor victory. That's just my little thing here. If they take all 3, they'll get a decisive victory. But if they can at least get 2, minor victory. And less than that, nah, they lose. That's the way I'm counting for this little solo game. So yeah, this unit here, conscript was here. He moved into here. No problems. Suffered no defensive fire. This unit there was a unit appearance. This one here, I believe he is a first line as well. He shifted to this hex. I did take a shot at him with defensive fire from this unit just to see if I could see it. And turns out I have no line of sight to this hex. So that was all for nothing. And then he went on to move into this hex, which I also defensive fired with this unit here. Since he's not using advanced movement, I'll go ahead and take the shot. But I forgot about this orchard. That's a +1 penalty right there. So I kind of crossed out the bonus of moving in the not using advanced movement. So it's okay. And residual fire was 2. And yeah, that was it. The only thing else I moved was this Russian officer slipped down into here. Just for fun, I guess. He's not really useful in the front. He can't really direct the fire because he has no bonus to it, so that's not going to be useful. And he's the only commander around here. He'd be better useful if he can rally a unit, but I don't know if it's worth it with this guy. Not too concerned about him. He's just going to basically sit there and die, I guess. We'll see. But that was it for the movement and defensive fire. Well, let's see what's next is the defensive fire phase. So now I'm going to get into the proper defensive fire for the Germans. This is where they can cut loose against possible targets. So I'm going to jump ahead now, and I'll tell you what happens at the end of turn 2. All right, here we are. It's the end of turn 2 for the Russians. They finished their turn. Not really a whole lot happened. I'll just whip through this so we can get right into turn 3. This position up here was held by this stack. There was 2 broken units. They're currently routed to this location within the same building with the leader. They're both DM at this point. And yeah, we'll see if they can rally in the next rally phase. We'll see. That would really boost the defense of this position. Even if they are conscripts, it would still help and make it more difficult for the Germans to get in here. For the Germans, they did put some defensive fire on this position right here with the flamethrower, and unfortunately, folks, the flamethrower is gone. Yep, rolled greater than a 10 for its X value, so it is no longer available to me, or to the Germans. Ran out of juice, more likely than not, so it's out of the battle. That was something I did not expect, and it's actually pretty unfortunate. I wanted to get more use out of that, so that's going to make it perhaps a little more difficult. We shall see. This 9-2 commander is definitely a boon to the Germans. We also currently occupy this position with the MMG, the Russian MMG. Not as good quality, but it would be nice to have. The only detriment is that it will slow down my movement, but I don't really have to go far with this stack, since the building is actually right here. And I could use all the firepower I can get. Of course, during my upcoming rally phase, I'll try and pick up that Russian MMG, I think. You have to roll under a 6, but I'm thinking of doing that. If not, I might move on and just have one of these other units move in there and attempt to pick it up as well, or instead of having this stack with it. But we'll see. I'll think about that. And of course, we got the elites up here with the DC. I still want to make use of that. They're in a nice stone building, so we'll see what role they play. Yeah, that's the situation. Russians really didn't do much. They just shifted around a little bit. I'm going to try and rally these in the rally phase, and yeah, they're holding their own so far. So let's get to turn 3 for the Germans and get to that rally phase and see what happens. All right, folks, here we are. This is the end of the movement phase for the Germans. Turn 3. About to go into the movement, or not the movement phase. We're about to go into the defensive fire phase for the Russians. That's coming up. Let me show you what happened. It's quite a bit, actually. You can still see the residual firepower, some smoke markers, prep, and some CX markers, double timing units are in place. There's also a pin down here. Start over on the right. A lot happened over here. We had this medium machine gun held by some first-line Germans. They did put some fire on this square, or hex, and you'd think they did all the damage. They didn't do any damage. However, this stack of Germans right here is what told the tale. This is a 8-1 commander. They have an LMG and 2 first-line units, which are 4.6.7s. They put down the hurt on this stack, and friends, take a look at this. Not only is there a DM marker on every unit in here, but the leader is wounded as well. What a shame. This is a big turn of events here. So the leader is broken, and he is wounded. He's going to be penalized heavily in the upcoming turns. And both units here, squads, are broken, DM'd. They are also adjacent to a German unit, which means they got a rout. So that's the case right here, as you can see. First line German unit hustled from this position all the way down here. Nobody could see him. Nobody could track a line of sight to him, except, of course, this leader, who's all by his lonesome with a couple broken units, conscripts, if you remember. That's not going to help the Russians, so they occupied this building. He's going to be penalized for a while, but that's okay. That's all right. This is an objective building, and the Germans currently occupy it, so that's not good for the Russians. Russians have been nullified here in this defensive position. Germans got a nice couple squads up here with the commander. Turn 4 should be interesting for the Germans, I'll tell you that. I'm looking forward to securing this building with the Germans in that turn. We shall see if that happens. No reinforcements have showed up for the Russians yet. Anyway, back to the middle building, which is also an objective. It is now a contested building, as you can see. We got a Russian squad here under first fire, and the Germans have made entry into the building thanks to some smoke laid by this unit of elites and their 9-2 commander. They originally were up here. They failed trying to pick up this piece of equipment in the rally phase. But that was okay. They rolled a 6, actually, so yeah, they failed that. That was okay. They laid smoke in here, and they eventually moved into this hex with an advance move. I think they spent a total of 4 movement points to get in here, but with the leader, their max is 6 MP, so they didn't spend all their MP to get in here, which is pretty cool. So it was an advance move. They weren't going to be penalized when shot at for using non-advance movement. So that was good enough for me. Just wanted to get them into the building. That was good. So there they are. They've got smoke. They endured some firepower here from this unit. And all is well so far. As far as these units, let's see what's going on. Let me think. Again, that MMG laid down some prep fire over here. This stack, the leader and the elites. I believe the elites were here, and the leader was here. I started off with the elites. They laid some smoke here, and then began to move to this hex, which was open. You can see the residual firepower put on this hex from this unit, currently marked as final fire. This is a conscript squad with an LMG. They did put some fire on this hex and was not effective. The elite Germans did continue their movement into this hex, where they cannot be seen by anybody except these guys, but they're already committed to firing here, and this unit is closer to them than this unit, so they could not defensive fire here. And also this unit as well could not fire into this hex, because I counted this stone building as in the way. At least it looked in the way by the corner. So the only unit that could fire in here was this unit of conscripts. It was ineffective, and therefore the elite Germans ended their turn here in this hex, adjacent to a broken Russian unit, which again will have to be marked as DM and have to route. The leader, which you remember was here, he then moved into here, here, and here, and ended his move. He has, I believe, yeah, this position right here. The only one able to see that and fire on him would be this unit here, I think. I'm not sure. I don't think he did. I don't think he could see him because of this corner. Yeah, so that's a blind hex there to these units. So nobody was able to fire on this. I'll have to double check that, but I'm pretty sure that hex cannot be seen. And then he followed up by moving here and ending his turn in with that elite squad, who again has a DC. I'm not too keen on using that DC just yet. Perhaps in the final fighting for this building area here. That's where I'm anticipating things to happen. Anyway, smoke is still in place till the end of the movement phase, which will be removed. Actually, I think this officer wasn't here. I think he might have been either here or up here. Somewhere up there. I'll have to look back, because this guy was here. Yeah. I think this commander here was actually up here. Well, anyway, I'm close. This officer moved into this square in hopes of rallying this broken unit still. He's still broken. Getting a little careless here. Straighten up my counter stacks. Yeah, he moved back here. He's going to try and rally this unit in the next rally phase. And that'll give me 2 units, 2 squads of Germans down here to hold this sector. He did some prep fire as well, this German squad. One of these units down here, ineffective. And finally, this hex here had some engineers with a DC in it. And as you can see, he didn't have to double time to make his way all the way down here through the orchards. He survived some fire, not from him, but from these units over here. Specifically, I believe it was this unit and this unit. I think he fired as well, and that's why you see this one here. I don't think these two could see him, so it was probably him, and then he was marked with final fire. 1, 2, 3. And by the way, this hex cannot see this position up here. So he could actually fire on this unit. I'm probably confusing which ones are actually doing the firing here, but the only one who could have fired here would be him. He couldn't because of the building in the way. But once the Germans got here, he fired, and possibly him. Anyway, he got to this final location. He survived this little journey with residual firepower. And he is a elite unit, and he's got a DC. So that's pretty remarkable that I still have 2 DCs here, and I've occupied this building. And I'll tell you why in a second. I also had this squad. This is a pinned and basically exhausted unit. They double-timed all the way from, where were they? They were up here, actually. And he made his way all the way down along the road to get in here. And he was only fired on 1 time because these guys were under final fire at this point. He's like the last squad I moved. So they were under final fire, and they couldn't shoot at him. He wasn't moving adjacent. But when he did eventually move into the stone building, this unit, who was on first fire, I believe, at this point, he only fired once, probably over here. And he did manage to not only pin the unit, but the unit was marked as CX. So this unit is going to be pretty penalized in the upcoming turn. But so it was worth the effort to shoot into this square. And that's it. So we've got 3 final fired units. Hats off to the Russians. They did a lot of shooting here. Trying to cope with the Germans suddenly doing a lot of movement. Now I'm in a stone building, as you can see, and I'm right next to this 3-hex objective building. So yeah, effectively the Germans are about to pounce on all 3 objectives. They're still fighting for this one. There's a Russian unit here they have to take care of. This one has been captured, and this objective is on the brink of being captured. So the Russian turn is next. They probably are going to fall back here. It depends on their reinforcements. Now, the reason why I occupied this and took such a chance shifting this unit to here is because this gives me some nice avenues of fire, assuming I have full firepower, which I do. I wasn't exhausted. All along this region. Remember, the reinforcements for the Russians are coming on somewhere along this edge. So we're going to want to fire on them as effectively as possible, catching them in the open if possible. So this is an important position, I think. So there they are. Unfortunately, I have the DC with me. Not effective where it is, but he's still in a position to swipe this way if need be, as well as up here if need be. It all depends on how well this combat goes and where the Russian reinforcements come. That's my way of thinking anyway. And finally, up here, I left these 2 squads. The one has to be rallied yet with the 8-0 commander, and plus I still have this unit. Now, hopefully this squad will get rallied in the next rally phase. I hope, because his position here in this stone building opens up this whole area to fire. So it's risky for the Russians to come on in this zone. Same for him. Hopefully I won't have to worry about that, and I can start moving these squads forward with a leader and help take this final building objective. This unit here with a DC, he's going to be swiping in this way as well. I really want him and possibly both of these squads to really try and take this position along with this unit of elites. Once they take a break. I got too many counters on this. But yeah, folks, that's the situation. Yeah, it's not elite, it's a first line unit. That's the situation. Very happy with the outcome of that. It started off pretty pathetic for the Germans. Their die rolls with their preparation fire was horrible. But this made up for that. So here we go, folks. We're going to see what happens with the movement phase, or the defense fire phase, rather, for the Russians. This is the Germans' turn still. And I'll show you the results of all that. And again, this unit's going to be routing in the route phase. But next up, defensive fire for the Russians. Let's see how well they do. All right, here we are. This is the end of turn 3 for the Germans. We still have the Russians to go yet. We're going to go into a rally phase next. But I'll show you what happened here as we went into close combat, defensive fire for the Russians, and so on and so forth. Starting over here on this side, these units, I think they were down here. Where were they? I think they were they here? Yeah, they were in here. They routed. They had to route, and because they were adjacent to this unit, who was up here. And that was 2 squads and a commander, and really didn't have much choice. He was over here at the time. Put him there in the middle. But what they had to do was route, and the only place to go was right here. They couldn't be adjacent to this guy, which that's where that would be. So they couldn't do that. So they had to go through some open ground. There was some interdiction. I didn't do the low crawl, and I did it with all 3. And the end result was, because they did make it, the end result was that one of the squads took a casualty reduction. Its size was reduced. The other unit made it unscathed. And you'll notice that the officer is no longer with us. He was wounded. He was wounded a second time for interdiction. He was removed. He was taken out of action, folks. So they lost their leader. I was hoping that wouldn't happen, because at least if he rallied, even from back here, I could get those troops back in action. But it was unfortunate. I think the leader was the second counter that I attempted to rally with. yeah, so that was that. And they still have their DM marker currently. What else happened here for the Russians? The defensive fire for the Russians really was ineffective. I should have mentioned that earlier since that was the next phase. I think it was only in one spot right here. That unit that is no longer here, you'll notice it's gone. I believe it was this unit. I think a first line unit. It was close combated, but he did attempt some defensive fire at half power. He was at a first fire. He was under a first fire marker, so his firepower was halved, doubled for point blank, so on and so forth. Was totally ineffective. And he went on to fight a close combat in a close combat phase and was destroyed. So that squad was taken out of action by this 9-2 and his elite squad of Germans. So that was it for defensive fire. What else happened? No more defensive fire. The Germans advanced, and they did their advanced fire, of course. Then, let's see. Over here on this side, you'll see that this unit did actually advance in here after the opposing unit routed, and he's currently located here. Still got his DM marker. That'll be removed in the rally phase, but he went all the way through these buildings here, which he could do. He was never closer to any of these enemies, including this one. Well, he advanced. He was up here. This guy and this guy who was over here, he was always about 2 hexes away from them, so he could keep on going, and he did. And he did his full 6 MPs, movement points, to this position here, underneath another unit, which is not broken. It's a first line. I thought about putting him with the leader, thinking I was going to have a chance at rallying him, but, you know, considering he's under a DM marker and his morale to begin with is 4, it'd be next to impossible. So I just put him there. Yeah, so that was the routes. There was no routes for the Germans, of course. These guys here, they were up in this square with this officer. They routed and got to this position here. And trying to think why they routed. I'm going back in a couple turns, thinking that should they have routed from this location, because the Germans were in this location. They don't have to be adjacent to force them to fall back to route or to be put under a DM. They could be in the same location, which this was. So I don't know if I forgot to do that correctly or not. It doesn't matter, however, because these guys eventually did route. They went into here and went into here, and that was it. And they're still under a DM at the moment. These are those 2 green units, conscripts. And that was it for the routes. Again, this medium machine gun for the Russians is still sitting here, open to be grabbed. And advance phase for the Germans. There was no advance into combat except here, in which case these guys moved in. Like I said, they beat the Russians that were in here cleanly, decisively. The commander joined at the combat, and he helped substantially. This unit here, I believe, just remained where he was, again, covering this approach. This unit here that is kind of winded with a CX marker, they do have an LMG. They're a first-line unit. Just a quick note here on this CX German unit. It's actually pinned, and it did not advance in the advance phase. It is currently located in the spot where it is right now, so it wouldn't actually have advanced into that building. So just ignore that. I made a little mistake, a little error in the video earlier, and this is the correction. So as before, this unit is actually also pinned and did not advance into that objective building. This unit moved from here to advance into this location because they're not rallied yet. And I just want to put them here because, you know, them Russian reinforcements might come, and I want to cover at least the open ground with my units. Same with this guy and kind of this guy as well. He's in a position to cover here, but that's neither here nor there because he's closing in on the objective, which is what I want him to do. That's an elite unit, and they do have their DC with them. So this is an important stack. I also shifted the MMG, which is with first line troops, up to this building. They were here. They're now here. They have something to shoot at now, as well as down this direction. They were a little bit limited being here since the enemy's been taken out. No threat at the moment. And one little move that I made with the Germans, I'm kind of wondering if I should have done, or if I did it the correct way. This is all tactics, but what I did is this stack was here. I took the one squad with LMG, put them up in this direction, hopefully to get them in this building as quickly as possible. Of course, I have to spend the turn in the open, kind of risky, and this unit as well advanced in this opposite square or hex over here with the same intention, get inside this objective building, because there's only one unit in here, and he's kind of exhausted, and he'll be that way till my next German turn. Yeah, that's the situation. If the reinforcements don't come, I think the Germans got this in the bag. But if for some odd reason they do show up in this turn, which will be turn 3 for the Russians. No, this will be turn 3 for the Russians. Germans are first. Yeah, this will be turn 3 for the Russians. So I'm going to make that roll for you guys. I'll see if they show up. They need to roll under a 3. So they need a 1 or 2 on their die. See if they show up. But if they don't, I think the Germans are going to have this battle in the bag. They've got this building. They're about to secure it in their next turn. They've got this building for the most part, and they're about to finalize that capture. There's nothing here but broken units and a leader. Broken units, no leader, an abandoned MG. Their only strength is over on this left flank. And hey, if they hold on to this, by the rules of the scenario, they win. But again, I'm playing a special rule where if I take 2 buildings, I get a minor victory. 3, I get a decisive victory. 1, I still lose as the Germans. So yeah, if we take at least 2, I've got a minor victory. But I'm going to go for 3, you know it. And down here, this will be the main place to watch at the moment. I imagine the Russians might fall back into this building quickly. I'm not sure. It's a 6-turn game. They really don't have to at the moment. They could just sit back and shoot at this guy if they wanted. But they're being pressured from 3 different directions. Here, here, and here. Not to mention here as well. There's a lot of potential areas of shooting here. Plus the MMG. So everything is pointing in this direction against the Russians. And again, they have a conscript unit with an LMG. And they have, I think this is a lot. No, it's conscript as well with an LMG. And 1 first line unit. No LMG. And a buddy under there who's DM'd, and a leader who's not very useful at the moment, being an 8-0. So we're going to jump into the Russians' turn 3 and see how this goes. So far, folks, it's looking good for the Germans. I'm quite amazed. I'm sticking to my plan. The only thing that's different is I thought I would have taken this either first or second along with this. But instead, I ended up taking this one. And you could say this as well. It's only got the leader there. He's pretty much in trouble at the moment. Yeah, and no Russian reinforcements at the moment. So we'll see what happens. I still have my medium machine gun, and I still have 2 DCs left. Demolition charges, which have yet to be used. I think the Germans are a pretty good, strong position after 3 turns of action. Okay, so let's jump into it. I'll give you the results of turn 3 for the Russians. Folks, before I go, let's roll the Russian reinforcements. They need to roll underneath a 3. Turn 3, so they can roll under that. Here it is. Red dice is what counts. I got a 5. They do not do it, folks. No Russian reinforcements on turn 3. Uh-oh. Going to be a tough one for the Russians. Okay, let's see what happens.